Hi viewers, welcome to the channel Global English Academy, which aims at teaching English language and literature. Well, in the last class, we have discussed in detail about Aristotle and Plato as a literary critics. So, in this video, we will continue the discussion on it. So, today we have Longinus. Here we have the portrait of Longinus. Okay. So the first thing we must know when we think of the work called On the Sublime, which was written by Longinus, it is generally accepted that On the Sublime is a classical work which was being written by Longinus. But the real identity of the author of On the Sublime remains unknown. Some of the critics and the poets accepted, believed that the work on the Sublime was written by Dionysius, who was a celebrated rhetorician, but his other, works have no similarity with it, either in a thought or in expression. But some of the Neo-Platonic, and which means Neo-Platonic means they were the followers of Plato's ideas. Okay, so they believed that on the Sublime was written by Longinus. So this was the view accepted by the Renaissance writers also. Okay, and whoever the author and whatever the its date of origin, but the work has had a tremendous impact on literary critics for all these years. The author Longinus has been called the first romantic critic and the man who stressed the importance of emotional transport. Okay, and so the major portion of on the Sublime is devoted to the discussion of rhetorical device of figures of speech, choice of diction, and word order. So the theory of transport is the highest contribution of Longinus to the literary criticism. And he said that literature brings pleasure to the man. Okay, and makes him to be glad. Okay, and literature tries to make man better in some respect, develop his personality, and it may also bring a change into his ideas by persuading him a new set of opinions. See, moreover, Longinus believed that literature should, bring pleasure to the human beings, and it should teach him to live a better life. Okay, so this is what Longinus views about literature. And today we remember Longinus because uh, he reminds us because there must be an organic relationship between feelings and emotions, excellence in expression to be measured by the effects in produce. See, according to Longinus, the work should talk about the emotions and feelings, and there must be a excellence of use of language also. According to Longinus, okay, being a work of art, it should have all the qualities. It should pleasure the human beings, and it must have emotions, feelings, and there must be a excellence of style when it comes to work of art, according to Longinus. So Longinus was a famous romantic critic, So he declares that subject is rhetoric. Its central argument is what constitutes sublimity. See here, sublimity means excellence in language, in literature. See, whenever the poet or the author writing a novel, poetry, drama, essay, and so on, so his language must be excellent according to Longinus. Okay, the language it should consist of a lot of ornaments. Here, ornaments are figures of speech according to Longinus. Okay, and Longinus believed that the function of literature is to instruct or delight to do both. It was prose to pursue. See, if it is a poetry, according to Longinus, it should instruct or to delight. So, if it is a poetry, poetry must instruct and delight the human life or readers or its readers. And if it is a prose, it should pursue, it should teach something to the human life if it is a prose, according to Longinus. For him, the first and most important source of sublimity is the power of forming great concepts, not instruct and delight persuasion. See, you must remember when it comes to Longinus that he is a famous romantic critic and his work on the sublime is about rhetorical features and figures of speech of a work of art. And Longinus argued that when it comes to literary work, literature, there must be excellence in your language, excellence usage of language by the author, and there must be emotions and feelings. Okay, there must be a style of expression according to Longinus. A work of art should have all these qualities. And rhetorical features of a text. See, Longinus focused much on the rhetorical features of a text or the work of art. Here, he talks about three main components of rhetorical components of work of art. So the first one here is schemata. Here, schemata means it is the proper usage of figures for it is the proper use of figures of speech and thought. See, when it comes to work of art, there must be a proper use of figures of speech and thought by the author. And the second component is parasis. Here, parasis means noble language, and diction comprises the proper choice of words and use of metaphors and ornamented language. See, so when it comes to work of art, you know, there must be parasis. Parasis means noble language here and proper choice of words. So which word should use in which incident, in which situation, the author must know it. If he knows the language where to use, what language is to use when it comes to work of art, okay, he must know all the things. And the last component here is composition. Composition means the arrangement of words should blend thought, emotion, figures, and words. See, when it comes to work of art or literature, there must be composition. There must be the composition of words, arrangement of words. There must be thought and emotions, figures and words. So this is how Longinus talk about literature in his work on the sublime. Okay, so this is all about Longinus. Now we have Horace. Horace, as you know, that he is also a lyrical Roman lyrical poet. Roman lyrical poet during the Augustus Caesar reign. A new tradition in literary criticism began with Ars Poetica. Here, Ars Poetica is a work written by Horace, highly modeled, influential during the Renaissance. See, this work, Ars Poetica, was highly influenced to the Romantic or the Renaissance writers. Renaissance writers. It on Aristotelian theory, Aristotle's poetics, discussing about poetry, poetic style, and drama. See, in this work, Ars Poetica, no, he talks about as Aristotle, propagated in his thought-provoking work called Poetics. Here, Horace also talks about the poetry, poetic style, and drama in his work called Ars Poetica. See, the death of Aristotle saw the beginning of the period of decadence in Greek art and literature. Literary criticism degenerated into mere rhetorics and scholarism. See, no literary theory in the next 200 years was produced which could compare with the theories of Aristotle. See, this is how, after Aristotle, no, there is no proper theory, there is no proper literary theory to judge the work of art in the Greek art and literature. In Greek art and literature. And critics believed only in the study of grammar and rhetoric. After Shakespeare, no, the critics, literary critics, they focused much on the study of grammar and rhetoric. They were formalistic and technical in their approach. They were grammarians and philologists and ever interested in the study of genres. The literary criticism was faithful reflection of the literature of the period. See, and the light of learning gradually passed away from Greek to Roman. Right, the text of Aristotle works were taken from Athens to Rome. There, the literature flourished in Rome with the coming of Virgil and literary criticism with Horace. He was a poet and a critic. His importance today is more, influential, and he is the one who focused much on the use of language in a poetry. Ars Poetica may be divided into three parts. Its main ideas may be, arrived at the first part. The first part is deals with, poesy. Here, poesy is subject matter of poetry. See, if we have a, poem, the subject matter of poetry must be important when it comes to writing poetry, no, there must be a subject matter of poetry, what poetry is going to tell its readers, that's also very important. Usage of language, figures of speech in a poem is important. At the subject matter, what poetry, when we are reading a poetry, no, we have to learn something from that poetry. It has to improve the human life, it has to teach something to its reader, So, subject matter of poetry is very essential. And the second part here is poema. Here, poema means form of poetry, form of poetry. Here, he talks of the rules to be followed and observed. So, here, form of poetry. When we are writing a poem, no, there must be, rules. When we are writing a sonnet, no, there must be, the poem should wind up with 14 lines. And the first 6 lines should, tell the problem of a, matter. And the other 8 lines should talk about the solutions of it. Okay, so this is how there must be a rule. If you are writing a poem, if author writing a poem, no, there must be a forms. There are so many forms in literature. When it comes to poetry, we have lyrical poem, epic poem, didactic poem, and so on. Okay. And Horace says that the aim of poetry is to instruct, to delight. He is a classist who is aware of the claims of reality on literature, but he also believes that literature must have the quality of please, must have the charm to delight. The aim of poets is either to be beneficial or to be delight, or in the phase of combined charm, highly applicability to the life. See, the aim of poets is to teach something to its reader. It has to be applicable to the reader's life when it comes to literature. Okay, so this is how uh, Horace talks about the importance of work of art in his work Ars Poetic. He asks here, Horace asks the writer choose a correct word and right word. He reminds us that meaning of words change with the passage of a time. Therefore, a writer should be aware of the latest implication of the word. Okay, so here usage of words is very essential for a poet according to Horace. He must have appropriate word at the appropriate situation according to Horace. A poet should be conscious not only of words but also of the meter. He should know well the suitable of different meters in different poetic forms. And he has to learn, the poet has to learn about the meters and he should go to the initiates. So, just as there must be unity in poem, also see, when we are writing a poem, there must be unity according to Horace. Okay, so this is how Horace talks about the importance of a work of art in human life in his work called in his magnificent work called Ars Poetica. See, Horace asserts that since the language of poetry is higher than the language of common use, see, when we are using a language in our day-to-day life, no, it is quite common. Okay, we use very simple language when we are talking to someone, when we are communicate with someone. But the language of poetry is so higher, so the poetry has hidden meaning. Okay, we cannot understand a poem by reading once, twice, thrice. It has to require a lot of reading in order to understand the poetry. And the poetry has hidden meaning. Okay, and We have to work, we have to reread many times to understand it. For epic poetry, iambic pentameter should be used. For poems, elegiac verse. For tragedy, comedy, iambic verse. See, when it comes to epic poetry, no, iambic pentameter should be used. Okay, according to Horace. And when it comes to poems, there must be elegiac verse. And when it comes to tragedy, comedy, the poet or the dramatist has to use iambic verse. Okay, so both Plato and Aristotle assert that the poet must imitate nature. See here, Plato asserted that poets must imitate nature, and he said in his theory called imitation, mimesis. These poets imitate the world. He says Aristotle says it, and here Plato and Aristotle views about poetry is almost same. Okay, they both says that art should imitate the society. Here he says he accepted that Horace accepted Plato's and Aristotle views about literature, and he adds something to it. So he says that, Horace declares that poets must imitate others. Poets, particularly those of past and especially the Greeks. See, the poets must imitate the other poets and those of especially the Greek poets. Okay, the ultimate aim of literature for Horace is to be sweet and useful. See, when we look at Longinus, no, according to him, the ultimate aim of literature is to be delight, is to be pleased to the human life. But here, Horace, according to Horace, the ultimate aim of literature is to be sweet and useful, beneficial to the society, to the its readers. The best writings, he asserted, both teach and delight. To achieve this goal, poets must understand their audience, and learned readers may want to be instructed, whereas other may simply read amused. See, the poet's task is to combine usefulness and delight in the same literary work. See, so he says that Horace says that literature should, know, teach and delight the human life, and poets must understand its, their readers. Okay, the poets must understand their readers, their audience. The poet has to learn something from the readers. Okay, and some readers, some writers write some literary works for the sake of amusement, but this task is to be combined. There must be usefulness when we are reading a work of art. No, it has to be useful to the human life, and it has to delight. It has to give some positiveness to the human life when we are reading a work of art, according to Horace. So then we have, you know, Dante Alighieri. Dante Alighieri we have, and he was born in Florence, Italy during the Middle Ages. Dante is one of the most significant contributors to the literary criticism since Longinus and Horace. Now, from Longinus to Dante is a long period of more than thousands years, a period that is known as Dark Age. See, from Longinus to Dante, no, it has been more than thousands years. So this age is known as Dark Age. This period was a period of Christian, ascendance. Here, the Christian Church encouraged theology and architecture in literature. So, hence, there is no freedom for literature. All these took Latin as their language of expression. See, so because of this Christianity, so the writers started writing work of arts in Latin. So they have started expressing their thoughts in Latin. They have started writing work of arts in Latin. So Dante serves as a connection link between the Dark Age and Renaissance. Okay, so he was the bridge between the Dark Age and Renaissance. Dante was the bridge, and Dante starts his literary career defining use of a mother tongue as a medium for poetry, much against to wishes. See here, you know Dante states that the language spoken by the people is an appropriate, acceptable, and beautiful for writing. See, here, Dante, he gave more importance to writing in a local language. The language which was, spoken by the people is more important, appropriate, acceptable, and beautiful for writings. Here, he asserted that the poet has to use the language which was spoken by the people of that place. If he writes in a local language, his mother tongue, it is going to be very beneficial to its reader. Okay. And Dante asserts that vernacular is both excellent and appropriate vehicle for the work of art. He declares that the people's common language or the vernacular to be an acceptable expression for writing literature. See, here Dante says that he focused much on the simple language, using simple language while writing a work of art. He says that the people commons language is very acceptable one. It's very important to write in the common language. You know why? Because the common man can understand the literature, work of art. Okay. So Dante's main idea here is the use of a simple language, or the language which was spoken by the people is important to write in it. So poet has to use the common language. So Dante is most famous for his work the Divine Comedy, and he sometime banished from his native Florence for political reasons. He wrote his works in exile. When he was in exile, he wrote this masterpiece called the Divine Comedy. It's a mirror of Dante's contemporary world and his concept of Christianity. See here in this masterpiece work, the Dante, the Divine Comedy, he talks about his contemporary world and his concept of Christianity. For Dante, language is an instrument of expression. Therefore, he pleased that language should be proper, illustrative, and evaluated. And he does not believe in spontaneity of expressions. The poetry of the language proper for it. See, here, Dante does not give more importance to the spontaneity of expressions when we are writing the work of art. No, we are not supposed to give more importance to the figures of speech, rhetorical features. Uh, that is what he says. He says that Dante says that if we use common language, it's a instrument of expression. the way how we are going to express the ideas through the work of art is very essential according to Dante. Okay, so he does not give more importance to the spontaneity of expression in literature, in work of art. So this is how Dante's ideas were so essential. So first we have looked at Longinus. So how he has evaluated, how he has written that work, Longinus works on the sublime. Then we have studied about Horace. Okay, thereafter, we come to study about Dante Alighieri. So these are the three major, literary critics after Aristotle and Plato. So these are very important for the sake of net and cassette exam. So you have to go in detail about these writers. You have to study in detail, and there are some common sense, common things in these writers. Okay, when it comes to Longinus, no, he talks about more. He talks more about the rhetorical features of work of art. When it comes to Longinus, it's a simple idea that Longinus propagated to the readers of literature, and he also says that how poetry and the excellence of language in writing a work of art is very essential for Longinus. So then, when we study Horace, no, his writing, he also give more importance to the usage of language in a poetry, and how meter, how this iambic meter, pentameter played a significant role in writing a work of art, and he also talks about these things. Horace, and Horace also discussed poetry, poetic style, the subject matter of a poetry. So these are the similar things that, you must know about these critics. And then we have studied about Dante, and he also talks about the language. So there is a similarity in these writers. They all talk about the usage of language in writing a work of art. So here Dante also use the common language, or the language which was spoken by the people, no, is very important. It is better to write in a the language which was spoken by the people. So it's very important. It's a Dante's ideas. So he declares that the people's common language is very essential when it comes to writing work of art. If a poet writes in a common language, so it is going to be very beneficial to the society. So this is these are the beliefs these critics have in their writings. So you have to work more on these writers. So as I discussed what I know about these literary critics, so we will continue this discussion with other some other important critics. So these are the very essential classical critics, literary critics. So in the next video, I'm going to discuss some of other important literary critics. So thank you for watching this video. We shall meet in the next video. Okay, thank you. Have a nice day.